Hey everyone, this is Brian from the Tennis IQ podcast. Josh and I hope that you are enjoying the content and discussions that we put out week after week. If you'd like to support the podcast and help us to continue to produce quality episodes, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership. Currently, we have 3 tiers of support: the fan level at $3 per month, the supporter level at $7 per month, and the champion level at $20 per month. Benefits of joining the Tennis IQ podcast community include episode transcripts, participation in book club discussions, and access to monthly masterclasses with me and Josh. For more on these benefits of support, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership. Thank you so much. And now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Tennis IQ podcast. I'm Josh Berger.
And I'm Brian Lomax. And today, Josh and I are going to discuss an idea that we got from a great book called Areté by Brian Johnson. It's about 1,000-something pages, but each chapter is about 1 or 2 pages in length. And Areté is a Greek word that means excellence through virtue. And that's what a lot of the book is about, is helping people to live more virtuous lives as a means of designing a more meaningful and fulfilling life and a happier life. And one of the chapters is about something called LOVE PUH or PUH. And PUH or PUH, P-U-H, is an acronym for 3 words. And Josh and I want to discuss this because we think it really relates quite well to the career of a tennis player, but also even within a match. So P is for pain, U is for uncertainty, and H is for hard work. And so we're going to talk about what each of those means, or what we think each of those means, and how it might relate back to perhaps certain philosophical points. And then also, now that we understand this acronym a little bit more, what are good ways of using it when we're competing, when we're training, and when we're trying to become the best tennis players possible? So Josh, let's start with breaking down the acronym: pain, uncertainty, and hard work. Let's start with pain. Why does this matter for tennis players? Like, what do we mean by pain? What are some potential meanings of pain when it comes to a match, when it comes to a career, it comes to becoming a great player?
I think it could look different for each person. I mean, I think for some people it could be physical pain, right? I mean, if we're talking about having a long career in the sport, one that spans years or decades, you will have some sort of injuries that pop up. So physical pain is a definite, is in certain ways unavoidable, I would say. But there's other types of pain. I mean, I think it can be painful to lose. I think especially maybe in certain types of situations. We had a recent episode about tough losses. So certainly losing, certain types of matches can be painful. Not playing your best in certain ways, maybe there's missing out on opportunities, so I think there's a lot that can be painful or just feel less than ideal. And I think these situations can come up certainly within a career, and then also, within a match. I mean, you might have physical pain that you're dealing with during a match, but also just sort of the pain of dealing with those ups and downs, right? The fact that during a match, there's going to be constant ups and downs. You're going to win plenty of points. You're going to lose plenty of points, right? Yes, there's certain 6-0, 6-0 matches, but generally that's the case, right? We've talked about Roger Federer's speech where he talked about winning 54% of his points over his career. And we've talked about that concept quite a bit where, it all evens out to around 50%, where you're going to win quite a bit, you're going to lose quite a bit. But it's how you deal with that pain. It's how you deal with that losing. It's how you deal with that adversity that that happens. So yeah, I think with that first point, that point of pain, it's inevitable. It's inevitable that it happens within a match and over the course of a career.
And when I first read the pain part, the word that immediately came to mind for me was suffering. A match similar to like the Buddhist concept of, life is about suffering, learning to suffer well. And so I thought of like the mental, emotional anguish of a match, the ups and downs. There's lots of losing. There's a lot of suffering that goes on there, but can we learn to do it better and understand that that's the reality? I'm in agreement with you about the kind of physical discomfort. I remember just a recent match of my own where my quads really tightened up, right? There's a certain amount of pain there. What am I going to do about that? Unfortunately, that's normal. You play long matches, you're going to feel things. And as you said, Josh, your long career, you're going to have things that you feel as well. Any professional athlete will tell you that they're rarely at 100%. There's always something going on. And if we think about how grueling the professional tour is, just from the schedule, they're always feeling something. There's some level of pain going on in their bodies through such a repetitive sport. So that was kind of like where I thought, and it's like, all right, how do we learn to deal with it? Understand that that's a normal piece of what's going on. U is for uncertainty. So I'll go through this one first and let you respond to that. To me, uncertainty is a huge part of being a tennis player because we don't know what's going to happen. And this is, for many people, I mean, maybe for most, the root of anxiety is not knowing that future outcome. And maybe that then gets spun off into different stories of what will happen if I'm not successful. I'm sure you hear this. I hear this a lot with young players who want to play college tennis. They may fear some matchups because they don't want to lose that matchup. They're not sure if they can win that matchup. How is that going to affect my UTR? How is that going to affect what a coach thinks? These are uncertain things. Yet, it is normal. It is actually part of why we play. And learning to embrace this, learning to change our relationship to uncertainty, I think is not only great for tennis, but it's great for life. So tennis maybe can teach us a little bit more about that. So what are your thoughts on uncertainty, Josh?
I think it's always there. I think that it's easy to pretend that there's a lot more certainty than there actually is. Oh, I'm playing this person today. I should win. Or this is going to be easy. Or, oh, I have no chance against this player. Right? So it's easy to go in and imagine that there is certainty over the result, but there's not. There really never is. So I think we can start there, that I think people crave that certainty, and then that leads to certain expectations over results. But I think really there never is certainty in tennis and in life. So I think we can start by acknowledging that. And I think, within tennis, yeah, there's uncertainty over results. There's uncertainty over how you're going to play on a particular day. There's uncertainty over your opponent, how they're going to play, their behavior, you know, over the weather, right? Over, so many different factors within both a match and again over a career, right? People have injuries, people have slumps, people have the ability to continue pursuing the sport in the way that they want to or not. So there's always uncertainty that sort of hangs over, over our tennis careers. It's sort of a fact of life, I would say. So I think that with both of these pieces, right, sort of in the short term, in terms of, in terms of a match, but certainly over a career, I think it's almost like the uncertainty is the one constant that's gonna be there. So I think I'm glad that this chapter brought up that idea, because it's not only is it inevitable, but it's unchanging, right? No matter what you do, that uncertainty will be there, right? We can talk about that idea of controlling the controllables, and there's a lot that we can control, and a lot of the mental piece is we can work on, we can build tools, we can try to do what we can do to set ourselves up for success, and you know put ourselves in the best possible situation, but that uncertainty is always there. We can never guarantee things. We can never guarantee results. We can never guarantee success. We can never guarantee that we're going to be able to play tennis forever, right? We can't guarantee any of that. And so uncertainty over so many different aspects of the sport remain.
No doubt. And as you were speaking, it was reminding me I've been working with an athlete in another sport. She's a senior in high school, and one of the things that's bringing some stress to her sport is the college application process. And she feels super stressed about getting into her number one school. She's applying to 12 schools. And I kind of put almost like a goal achievement theory perspective to this, Josh, and asked her, if the only school you got into was number 12 of 12, would you be okay with that? And she thought about it. Yeah, I would make the best of that. I think I would be okay with that. It's like, okay, we don't really have to worry so much. It's very unlikely that you're going to go 0 for 12 because, you have a different tiers of the schools that you're applying to. You're working with a college advisor, your high school guidance counselor. They're not going to have you apply to 12 schools you can't get into, right? And you go to a very good private school. You're not going to go 0 for 12. So just really bringing it down to something like that, it helped her to reduce the uncertainty of what could happen. Now getting into school number one, if it happens, fantastic. That's great. It's not so much, what's going to happen if I don't get in there? And so I think that's a kind of like a life application to what we're talking about and how that's something completely out of our control, or a lot of it is, right? You send in that app, we don't know what happens to it, who reads it, what they think of it. There's so much there, and then you're waiting and you're waiting. So it's a very difficult time in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. You send in that application, you don't know you don't see what happens until that envelope comes back, right? It could be, you imagine that it's somewhere in a candlelit room, there's cigar smoke, there's a lot of chatter, there's the decision makers, and then okay, you get in or you don't get in. But what I like about what you did there, with that particular person, is that you help them sort of zoom out a little bit. It's so easy to be in our bubble, right? Whether that bubble is, okay, I have this tennis match or tennis tournament coming up, and this is so important. Everything comes down to this. Like this feels like the whole world, right? In this moment. Or for seniors in high school, the college application process, if for those that are pursuing that, can feel like everything, because in that moment that can feel like your world, and it can feel like the end of the world not getting into your number one school, because that's what you're clinging to, that you're hoping for that. You've been you know talking about that with parents, and your counselor and friends are asking you about it, and it can feel like everything. So I think being able to take a step back, being able to zoom out, put things into perspective is just so key. And I think that's a skill that we can use in tennis. That's a skill that we can use in that college application process. And to me, as somebody that's in this field of sport psychology and really performance psychology, to me, one of the most rewarding things, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I think it relates. One of the most rewarding things is when I see people that I work with who are able to use these same tools, not just within their sport, but in other areas of life, whether it's that college application process, whether it's within their careers, whether it's within their relationships. I think it's, and it these same skills, handling pressure, handling emotions, putting things into perspective, how you talk to yourself, all of these same things relate, outside of tennis. So I think, just being able to, yeah, apply these same tools can be really, useful in different situations. And I love how in the situation that you're bringing up, Brian, how it really, by being able to take a step back and sort of put things into perspective, that uncertainty is still there, but you can find a little bit more peace with that uncertainty, which I really like.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could look at a tournament in the same way. Do you have to win it, or okay, what would be the sort of the minimum achievement that we could do here that you would be satisfied with and you could learn from, right? All right, let's move to H. Hard work. When you first saw this, Josh, what came to mind from a tennis perspective, both from a career and in a match?
It is critical. I mean, can you win a match without working hard? Potentially, right? Potentially. I would say maybe then, that you would have done better against that player. Had you still, if you still managed to win without working hard, would I think you would certainly do better against that player, and probably you could have done better against the stronger player if that's the case. But I think it's in many ways it's obvious the importance of hard work to win a match, but also over the course of a career, right? I think it's hard work to keep your body in shape. It's hard work to stay mentally strong over a career. It's hard work to deal with those ups and downs of different matches. It's hard work to stay motivated, right? So I think all of it is challenging. I think it's all hard work. I think it's, and I think we'll get to this piece of it, but I think it's how can we embrace some of these different things? How can we embrace the challenges? How can we embrace the hard work that goes into it, right? I think instead of saying, I have to go to the court and I have to, I have to play for 2 hours here, or I have to travel for this tournament, or I have to, you know, do this strength and conditioning that goes into it, right? I think if we're able to be appreciative of getting that opportunity, of being appreciative of being able to do that hard work, of just starting to shift the way that we look at it, then that hard work doesn't feel maybe as intimidating. It doesn't feel like just pain, right? The first of the three qualities. It can feel more rewarding in a certain way. So I think it's always going to be there, right? For to achieve anything of importance, of anything that's challenging, that hard work is a critical piece, both within the moment or within a match or and long term.
To echo something you said, I feel like hard work is a requisite skill to being great at anything. And the first thought that came to mind when I read this about hard work was, and I think I got this from the Fighter's Mind, but a study done some years ago where they asked people if you could take a pill and immediately become a gold medalist in something, would you do it? About 50% of the respondents said yes, they would do it. And I think what that reminds me of is that they are cheating themselves out of the personal satisfaction and pride that they would get by actually putting in the hard work to do it. You use the word appreciate. I think that's 100% on that. We appreciate our journey so much more when we can reflect back on how hard we worked at it. So again, a requisite skill, there is no magic pill. Though, like, thinking I wish it were easier is, I think, in some ways self-defeating, because very few people will say, I kind of half-assed my way to the top. I don't know if there's any books out there that with that title, Josh, right? So usually when you read these books, it's a lot about insane determination and hard work and really positive virtues that get us there, not that, we didn't try our best. So I think, when we look at hard work, We have to see that as a skill that we can develop, and a skill that we're developing in the face of pain, a skill that we're developing in the face of uncertainty. In many ways, it helps answer this. There's a great, very short video of an interview with Dan Gable. Now, Dan Gable was an amazing wrestler, Olympic gold medalist. I think he had like one loss in his entire college and Olympic career. Won the 1972 gold medal without conceding a point, which is unreal. And then he also went on to coach, I feel like 15 national champions at Iowa, and like 20 something Big Ten championships. And he talks a lot about, in this very short video, how hard work for him was always the antidote to pressure. Work harder, more effort, right? Try more, fight more, as a means of getting through whatever you're dealing with. That was always his first answer. I thought that's really interesting. So I like showing that to tennis players, because tennis is a fight just as much as wrestling is. A little bit less physically engaged, yes, but it is a one-on-one sport. And so I think there's a lot here to hard work in terms of helping you deal with things that are going on the court, but it's also a requisite to deal with the other parts of this particular acronym of pain and uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case, right? And you hear about people like Kobe Bryant, right? They were waking up and going to the gym at, you know, putting up shots in the gym at 4 or 5 a.m. and the other people are showing up hours later, and he's already made 1,000 shots at that point. And I think it's ultimately to be able to do something really special, right? Win an Olympic gold medal or be one of the best to ever do something. It's not easy, right? Success, talent alone can't get you there, right? Maybe talent as a kid can get you a certain degree of where you want to get. Maybe it makes it a little bit easier in certain ways, but it's that work ethic, it's that hard work, it's that discipline, I think, which is connected to hard work, certainly. That really makes it possible. And yeah, I think that's, when we think about, really any athlete that's had significant success, I think that's, yeah, I think that's key. And I get that maybe in certain ways it sounds cliche. It's like, oh, well, you have to work hard to get where you want to get. And I get that. And it's cliche, but it's cliche for good reason, right? It's cliche. People talk about it. You see people that are successful in whatever their domain talk about it because it's a prerequisite, right? There's no way of getting there without really, going that extra mile and working hard. And and I think that discipline and structure piece really makes it possible. So it's not a matter of me deciding each day, okay, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Am I feeling that spark of motivation or not? Instead, have I put in that structure in place, right? Am I disciplined enough? Do I have the habits built in so that I am, let's say with the Kobe Bryant example, waking up at 4 in the morning and going to the gym and, shooting baskets for a couple hours before, while the rest of my teammates are sleeping, right? Do I have the discipline to have a stretching routine before I play compared to, showing up to the court and just getting started, right? Do I have the discipline to, to eat in a certain way so that I can have, a longer and more successful career? I think all of that is relates to hard work.
Absolutely. And I think you're starting to touch on some ways in which we can change our perspective here. The second half of this chapter really gets into what kind of mindsets do we need. And there's, a quote from Kelly McGonigal, who has written books about stress and goal achievement, and how, stress by itself is not the unhelpful thing. It's our perception. of that. And I know in sports psychology, Josh, we often talk about the difference between avoidance and approach. I actually don't like approach as a word. I feel like it doesn't resonate enough. I'm gonna change that scale if you don't mind, and we'll see what you think of it. From avoiding to embracing, and noticing where we are on that continuum when it comes to pain, uncertainty, and hard work, and then doing our best to move towards embracing, not avoiding the situation, not avoiding, competing or avoiding hard work or avoiding the pain of whatever we're doing. Can we move toward it and embracing? And so the chapter uses a very short mantra: "Bring it on." It's sort of helping us to do the opposite of what we might be feeling. You might be like, not into it today, don't really want to do this, whatever. And instead, go opposite. Bring it on. Embrace, kind of thing. And I think that's going to be very helpful, even if we make it part of our coach's voice, make it part of our coach's voice lexicon, that we say things like this, even if we're not feeling it sincerely. Saying it more and more can help make it more real. Saying it out loud certainly will help make it more real. So I think it's a really good way of looking at this, Josh. Can we understand avoiding versus embracing? Can we interrogate how we're looking at it? And then can we say the opposite to ourselves? Can we say bring it on, or whatever that is? Embrace the challenge. I love the pain. I'm excited to compete, right? You come up with your own phrases that helps you deal with pain, uncertainty, and hard work in such a way that you're embracing those very real aspects of becoming a great player.
I think that's key. I think by embracing it, and by embracing it, by just accepting it, then you're able to respond to it, right? I think if we're sticking with the hard work example, right? If something is really challenging and maybe it's painful, right? Like the first example, and instead of embracing it, we're feeling we are feeling I don't know, we're looking for excuses, we're feeling like, oh, this isn't fair. Why do I have to do this? If we're feeling like the victim in the situation, rather than being able to embrace it and thinking about, how can this help me? How can this make me better? How can I grow from this experience? I think that the difference between those perspectives and those approaches is, it couldn't be more different, right? The difference between, and we've talked about this idea of challenge versus threat, which I think is aligned with this idea. Um, but yeah, if we can see a tough situation and view it as an opportunity, view it as an opportunity for us to be better, be stronger, be maybe more mentally tough, be better physically, mentally, because we've gone through that situation. The difference between that and us being threatened by that situation itself is paramount, is everything. And I love that idea of bring it on, right? Where it's like, okay, tough situation, bring it on. You know, first of all, I think there's a certain confidence there in terms of feeling like, hey, am I've gotten myself to a position where I can handle whatever is thrown at me, and I bring it on. Let's see what this challenge, let's see what it's got. Let's see what, whether this challenge can shake me, right? So I think that's sort of the first piece of it. But I think that the second piece is, when you say bring it on, you're embracing it. You're leaning into it. You're not backing away scared and saying, uh-oh, what could happen? What might happen here? And sort of jumping to the future, you're staying present, you're engaged with that challenge, and you're eager to see what can happen with that situation. So I think it's I think it really is a huge difference.
And you used the word acceptance earlier, Josh. So this made me think about acceptance commitment therapy as an approach here. Accepting that this is reality, and then using our coach's voice or our self-talk to commit to our own values and virtues and behaviors, the things that we know we need to do here. If we are saying we want to be better players or become the best player that we can become, then there are certain realities to that, that what we say and what we do have to be in service of that overall mission. And we know that our minds at times will fight that. But when you're prepared with mantras, perspectives, self-talk scripts for those eventualities, you'll get through it. And then I think in the long term, your automatic voice in your head begins to get trained, and it begins to provide better guidance and thoughts, and is not so much something we're having to fight and change, but more is in tune with who we are trying to become. So I think this is, the bring it on thing is great, or whatever that you decide to come up with that moves you from maybe wanting to get out of the situation and instead embracing this whole thing as, this is part of my project. This is part of my journey of becoming a great player. I need to tackle this. This is a necessary thing for me. It's normal. And it's tennis. I'm not going to die here. And if we could even bring it back, Josh, to, purpose-based identity versus performance-based identity. This is about achieving our purpose, not about having to win today, but having to learn, making that the most important piece, right? Needing the experience and then reflecting on that. We talked about that in our episode with Bob Litwin, the idea of reflecting on your performances, writing about them. If you go through the pain, the uncertainty, and the hard work in a really positive way, there's so much you can write about that I think is going to just help you to be better in that next event.
I think that's really key. And I think if we are being realistic here, nobody is 100% at this. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect at always embracing these tough situations.
Like
right?
there are no mentally tough athletes, right? There are only mentally tough moments.
Exactly. Nobody's 100%. And we can think of any sporting icon, any sporting legend in tennis and in any sport, and we can think of moments where they haven't been that ideal of mental toughness, of confidence, of focus, of resilience, of controlling their emotions, whatever it may be. And that's okay, because they're human. They're human. But the key is, can we learn from those situations? And can we be excellent? Right? Can we strive for excellence? Not perfection. That's not going to happen. We're not going to be 100%. But let's strive for excellence with this. Let's try to, be aware enough to recognize when we're falling short. And let's try to be excellent at saying, bring it on. Be excellent at embracing and accepting and wholeheartedly leaning into the challenge, right? Brian and I were talking about this before we started recording. There's a short video, I think it's just maybe 2 minutes long, something like that, that I think we may have referenced in the past, but it's from Jocko Willink, and people may be familiar with him. And it's just titled Good. And we can link to this in the show notes. But he talks, all right, you're in a tough situation. Good. Okay, you get injured. Okay, good. Right? It's 100 degrees out there today. Okay, good. Right? So it's obviously most people, that's not their approach, right? They get injured. It's 100 degrees. They're playing an opponent that they have lost to in the past, or they who plays a certain playing style that they don't like playing against. And they say, "Oh, here we go," or "Uh-oh, I have to play this person," or "Why is this happening?" or why me?" Or they feel like the victim in some way. But what I like about that video, and I don't know if I'm fully doing it justice, so I'll link to it and people can check it out. What I like about it is we have the ability to decide how we decide to look at, we have the ability to choose how we look at a situation. And it might be a tough situation. It might be what would generally be thought of as a negative situation, but we can decide, okay, good. You know what? This is an opportunity for me to work on something. This is an opportunity for me to get better. Yes, traditionally, this wouldn't be thought of as a good situation, but I can make it a good situation. I can embrace it by looking at this in a certain way. And yeah, I think that's, and I think we've talked about that old sort of I think it's a proverb or story. I think it's a Chinese story where it's, the boy and the farmer, and they're in a situation, a situation that would generally be thought of as positive happens, and the father says, "Oh, we'll see, what happens," and then a negative situation, something thought to be a negative situation happens, and they say, "Well, we'll see," and that it sort of goes back and forth in that way. But yeah, I think there's a couple with both Jocko's point and with this story, this proverb. There's a couple main points here. That first of all, we don't know what's going to end up happening, right, with a situation. So we don't know if a situation is going, like, what that's going to necessarily lead to, and we have the choice for how we decide to approach it, how we decide to look at it. Can we see it in a positive light and think about how this can make us better, make us stronger, help us be a bit better tomorrow because we've been through it? Or are we feeling, are we feeling like this shouldn't be happening to us, that this is not fair, that this isn't right, that this is going to be too painful, too much hard work for us to have to deal with, too much uncertainty, too much of all three of those areas, and I just don't want to have to deal with it. If instead we can take a radically different approach that people don't generally take, by the way, then we can really get the most out of that challenging, tough situation.
So as I think for some takeaways or a recap of what we talked about, I would encourage people to examine their own relationship to pain, uncertainty, and hard work, both in terms of their career and whatever happens in a match, and then come up with some mantras. Perhaps bring it on as a good blanket one that works across all, but you might come up with more specific ones for each of those, or your own blanket kind of mantra to help you deal with it. And then you'll see how will that change things for yourself. So I think we'd love to hear how people see this, how they, maybe some mantras that they come up with, and we could share those on a later episode. So thank you, Josh, for a great discussion there. And thank you all for listening. That's our show for today. For more on today's episode, please check out the show notes. If you have any feedback or questions for the two of us, email us at tennisiqpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the content that Josh and I discuss on the show, please rate and review the podcast so other tennis enthusiasts can find it more easily. Additionally, to be notified of new episodes, please subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice, including YouTube, and you can also check us out on Instagram. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership, where you can learn about the benefits of being part of the Tennis IQ podcast community. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon in our next episode.